42nd and others, a resolution creating the Senate Study Committee on Digital Education and Screen Time in Georgia Public Schools and for other purposes.
Rules.
Senate Resolution 88 by Senator Jackson II and others, a resolution supporting the Georgia's coastal tourism and fisheries and opposing seismic testing and oil drilling activities off of Georgia's coast.
Natural resources.
Mr. President, that concludes the order.
The Secretary will now read reports of standing committees.
Mr. President, Senate Committee on Rules has had a consideration of the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate for following recommendation. Senate Resolution 50 do pass, submitted by Senator Mullis of the 53rd. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Transportation has had a consideration of the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate for following recommendation. Senate Resolution 19 do pass by substitute, submitted by Senator Beach of the 21st. And Mr. President, the Senate Committee on State and Local Government Operations had in consideration the following legislation, instructing me to report the same back to the Senate following recommendation. Senate Bill 5 do pass, and by Senator Kirk of the 13th. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Secretary will read bills and resolutions for the second time.
Senate Bill 25 by Senator Heath of the 31st, Rules of the Road, when driver of a vehicle need not stop upon meeting or passing a school bus, clarify. That concludes the order.
All right, it's now time for our morning roll call. Are there any motions to excuse? Chair calls on the senator from the 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senators from the 2nd, the 26th, and the 43rd for business inside of the Capitol.
Without objections, the senators from the 2nd, 26th, and 43rd are excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 27th.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 28th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 28th is excused. The chair calls on the senator from the 34th.
Thank you. I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 55th, business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 55th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent that we excuse the senator from the 14th for business outside the chamber.
Without objection, the senator from the 14th is excused. Are there any additional motions to excuse? Will the secretary will call the roll of senators? Signify your presence by voting the yea switch. The secretary will unlock the machine. It's now time for a morning devotional. All senators, please take your seats and cease audible conversations. Doorkeepers will please secure the doors. I'd like to recognize the senator from the 39th to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and to introduce our chaplain of the day.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Georgia flag. I pledge allegiance to the Georgia flag and to the principles for which it stands: wisdom, justice, moderation. It is my honor this morning to introduce you to our pastor of the day, Dr. Tony Sundermeer. Dr. Sundermeer he lives his values every day in centering those most marginalized in our community through his work at the church and serving the homeless population, serving those on the margins of our populations. And I couldn't be more honored to have him share with you today what he shares in my district as my constituent and his church in my district on a daily basis. So, Dr. Tony Sundermeer, if you would share with us this morning.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Thank you, Mr. President, for the privilege it is and the invitation to be here for the morning devotional. I bring you greetings from the First Presbyterian Church of Atlanta, where I serve as the senior pastor. First Presbyterian celebrates its 171st anniversary this calendar year, and in April we will mark our 100th anniversary worshiping in our historic sanctuary right on the corner of 16th and Peachtree Street next door to the Woodruff Arts Center. Now, our congregation has had a long-standing commitment to those in the city caught in systemic poverty, those who are housing insecure, and those living with severe mental illness. Our 2,000-member church is part of Atlanta's continuum of care and serves about 700 of our most vulnerable neighbors in the city each month through spiritual and social service programs, and most importantly, through relationships that are designed for self-sufficiency. I want each of the senators to know that you are most welcome to see this work firsthand. We're only 3 miles up the road in Midtown. We'd love to have you at first to show you around, to introduce you to some of our friends, to even perhaps have you volunteer in our foot washing ministry with our Women's Transition Center, our Redemption After Prison ministry, our community breakfast, which serves 300 people every Sunday morning, or one of our mentoring ministries. It would be really great to introduce you to that particular work. Some of you are familiar with the story of Nehemiah. He was a prophet who held a significant political position in the king of Persia's royal court. We're talking about the 5th century BC, and that king, Artaxerxes I, had recently conquered the Babylonians. Earlier in history, the Babylonians had conquered the land of Israel and Judah and forced the people of God into exile. Now that they were liberated, the Persians allowed the Jews to return home to the land of their ancestors. And as the exiles did return home, word gets back to Nehemiah and the king's court that the city of Jerusalem was in absolute ruins. The city wall had collapsed and the infrastructure was completely decimated. Nehemiah makes a request to the king to permit him to go back to Jerusalem and to rebuild the city walls, to reignite the economy, and to oversee a sort of urban revitalization project. The king, without a vote, confers to him the title of governor, and he sends him to oversee the work in Jerusalem. And under Nehemiah's political leadership, and in a mere 52 days, which is astonishing for Presbyterians, who take a long time to do everything, they reconstructed the city's walls and rebuilt its infrastructure. Senators, I liken your work to the work of Nehemiah, at least in terms of the scope of your responsibility. For you are responsible for our great state's infrastructure, its laws, and its governance. And in many ways, you are responsible for its safety. You're responsible for building up this state that will flourish and prosper for all its citizens. And I want you to know that you have my prayers and our congregation's prayers as you go about this work. We pray for your discernment as you wrestle with policies and legislation that seeks to accomplish these goals of building up our state. We also pray for you to remember something that Nehemiah remembered upon the completion of the restoration of Jerusalem. Nehemiah knew that it was not enough to have a strong infrastructure. He knew that it wasn't enough to just have rebuilt city walls. He knew that the people needed something more. He knew that they needed, rather, the very word of God. And so he had the priest Ezra, after the city had been rebuilt, he had the priest come out, and together in the presence of all the people, Ezra read for the first time in a long time the book of Moses, the Torah, the law of the Lord, in all of the people's presence. And in Nehemiah 8, it says this: "The ears of all the people were attentive to the book of the law." In other words, they were attentive to the moral vision God had set before them to live by, a moral vision that would shape their community life. They were attentive to this moral vision so that they would know how to live within the walls, but also outside of them, so that they would know how to facilitate a just and prosperous economy, so they would even know when it was time to tear down walls and to forgive debt and to set the prisoner free and to welcome the stranger and to care for the most vulnerable among them. So we also pray, and I pray, that you would be like Nehemiah in this way as well, that you would be attentive not only to our state's political and economic infrastructure, the building up of its safety and its strength in every way, but also pray that you would remember, like Nehemiah did, that people need a moral vision. They need leadership, and we need leadership who is guided not by expedience or personal gain or power, but instead guided by what is good and by what is just and what is pleasing in the eyes of God. So I pray that you would be attentive to that moral vision in your leadership and in your honorable and faithful service, which I am personally grateful for, to our great state of Georgia. Let us pray. God, make us more like Nehemiah, and for this body in particular, I pray that they may be attentive to the political and governance work that is before them this very hour and in the months ahead. I pray that they may also be attentive to the moral vision you have set in and through your word, and that this vision would shape their decisions for your sake and the sake of every person in our beloved state. Amen. Thank you.
In addition to being our chaplain of the day, we also would like to honor him as a special guest. Mr. Secretary, will you read a resolution?
Senate Resolution 89 by Senator Williams of the 39th, a resolution recognizing and commending Reverend Dr. Tony Sundermeer and for other purposes, whereas Reverend Dr. Tony Sundermeer has demonstrated his commitment to teaching the gospel, witnessing Christ through word and deed, and addressing the physical, psychological, intellectual, and spiritual needs of others, whereas Reverend Sundermeer has served as the senior pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Atlanta since August 2014, and he serves as the lead preacher for Sunday worship, moderates the session, and leads and equips the senior level staff of the church, and whereas his vision and direction have helped First Presbyterian Church of Atlanta grow in size and influence, uplifting the community like the light of Bethlehem and serving as a spiritual leader and place for fellowship, and whereas the unmatched spiritual assistance offered by Reverend Sundermeer is a source of strength and direction for persons in all walks of life. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body recognize and commend Reverend Dr. Tony Sundermeer for the many outstanding accomplishments of his dynamic Christian ministry and extend best wishes for many more years of successful fellowship and leadership. That concludes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call on the senator from the 39th District.
Thank you, Dr. Sundermeer, for being an example and showing us the way to live more Christ-like.
All right, we've got another special guest with us today that I'd like to recognize. Will the Secretary read a resolution?
Senate Resolution 78 by Senators Reda the 33rd and others, a resolution honoring Georgia's retirees and the Georgia State Retirees Association and recognizing February 6, 2019 as GSRA Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas the Georgia State Retirees Association was established in 2006 and is a nonprofit organization which advocates for over 50,000 active and retired state employees and educators within the state of Georgia. Whereas this association advocates and provides assistance for those actively serving the state of Georgia and for those who provide or have provided service in education of the children of Georgia. Whereas it is abundantly fitting and proper that this exemplary association be honored. Now therefore be resolved by the Senate that the members of this body honor Georgia's retirees and the Georgia State Retirees Association and recognize February 6, 2019 as GSR Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. I'd like to call upon the senator from the 33rd to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mr. President, my fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. Today I'm honoring Georgia's retirees and the Georgia State Retirees Association and recognizing February 6, 2019 as GSRA Day at the state capitol and for other purposes. Whereas the Georgia State Retirees Association was established in 2006 and is a nonprofit organization which advocates for over 50,000 active and retired state employees and educators within the state of Georgia. Whereas GSRA is dedicated to enhancing and promoting education as well as the welfare of the entire Georgia state government community relative to the retirement and health care benefits that are provided to the state of Georgia employees. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Senate that the members of this body honor Georgia retirees and the Georgia State Retirees Association and recognize February 6, 2019 as their day at the Capitol, signed by the Lieutenant Governor, Mr. Duncan, and yours truly, the Senator from the 33rd. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you, Senators, for allowing us to speak and be here this morning. My name is Barbara Hurt, and I am a proud 2017 retiree of the state of Georgia with 32 years of service. I love the state of Georgia. Thank you.
My name is Jim Somerville. I'm president of the Georgia State Retirees Association, and I want to express my appreciation to Lieutenant Governor and Senator Rett for sponsoring this resolution. And I also want to show our appreciation to all the senators as they have supported us in the past as we tried to attain the restoration of the COLA to retired state employees. And in closing, I want to mention that tonight in the Empire Room in the Floyd Towers West Building, we're having a legislative reception. And you all should have gotten an invitation, but if you haven't, consider this one to be an invitation to come. We're going to have our Legislative Service Award, and we're going to honor the Speaker of the House, David Ralston. So I hope that you can make it, and I appreciate the support you've shown in the past, and I look forward to working with you to better the lot of the Georgia State retirees. Thank you.
Go down here and take I'd like to introduce the doctor of the day and call on the senator from the 33rd.
Thank you, my fellow senators, colleagues, friends, and y'all. As you can see, I'm doing double duty just like in the Air Force. I used to draw the shorter stick and have to do back-to-back shifts, but it's a pleasure when it comes to serving people in our country and our great state of Georgia. But be there, Dr. Kelly DeGraffenreid serves as a physician Program Director of Access and the Patient Care Experience of Kaiser Permanente of Georgia. As a specialist in adult medicine, she believes that our bodies, minds, and relationships all have an effect on our health and encourages her patients to make time to celebrate their lives. Dr. de Graffenried, a native of Indiana and the youngest of 11 children, decided in the 8th grade that she wanted to be a physician. She graduated from Purdue University with a pharmacy degree and completed her medical degree at Case Western Reserve University and her residency at Emory University. She joined Kaiser Permanente in 2003 and sees patients at their medical offices throughout the Metro Atlanta. In addition to her clinical duties, she serves as the elective representative for her medical group's board of directors. Outside the medicine office, the doctor plays the piano and sings at her church, where she also coordinates programs and activities for children. She is also an avid tennis player and a fan of professional football, hopefully the Atlanta Falcons. I now present to you the doctor of the day.
Thank you. I'm a Saints fan.
Don't say that on the
I know. Good morning. Thank you, President Duncan. Thank you, Senator Rett, and a special thank you to my own personal Senator Tate. I also want to thank the Medical Association of Georgia for allowing me the opportunity to come here today as Doctor of the Day. And a special thank you to all of you here in this chamber for your hard work and service to the citizens of Georgia. I'm both proud and honored to be a Permanente physician here today, this day after so many of us are energized and motivated by the State of the Union events of yesterday. At Kaiser Permanente, part of our mission is to improve the health of the communities that we serve, and we appreciate this chamber's work towards ensuring that all Georgians have not only access to, but integration with a high-quality healthcare system here in Georgia. Kaiser Permanente physicians take care of at least 1.6 million Georgians every year, and we do it with a focus on high-quality care, looking for good outcomes, using evidence-based and team-based medicine. And so today I'm proud to be teaming up with Miss Julia in the medical aid station and would be happy to see any of you, but again, just wanted to say thank you for all of that you're doing for the citizens of Georgia, and I'm honored to be here to serve you.
Thank you. You took me off guard. At this time, I'd like to call on any senators that wish to rise on a point of personal privilege. You have a consent calendar of privilege resolutions before you. Do any senators wish to remove a resolution from the consent calendar? Is there objection to the adoption of the resolution on the consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the resolution on the consent calendar are adopted. Are there any motions to withdraw and commit? We have some additional special guests with us here today, and I'd like to recognize the distinguished senator from Chickamauga to introduce our special guest today.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize for being out of the chamber. Our good friends from the Republic of Georgia are here, and I know sometimes you hear movies, they talk about Georgia. No, not the one above Florida, but the one over in the Middle East. But they are one of our great economic partners, one of our political partners, a democracy in an area that is not very popular to be a democracy. But they do an outstanding job, and we're proud of them being our friends. Please help welcome the Republic of Georgia and Nicola to speak for a few minutes.
Thank you, Senator. Distinguished senators, it's a great honor and privilege for me to speak on behalf of the Parliament of Georgia and this historic building of the Senate of the great state of Georgia. We in the country of Georgia have special emotional feelings to the people in the state of Georgia. We are very thankful for a great cooperation that the state of Georgia and the country of Georgia have. This dates back to 1987 when the capitals of the two Georgias, Tbilisi and Atlanta, became sister cities, and the economic ties have developed ever since. We have great cooperation in the field of military. Georgia National Guard is a very active and strong partner of Georgian armed forces, and we have trainings, military trainings together. As most of you know, Georgia is a contributor to NATO military missions in Afghanistan. It's one of the largest per capita contributor countries to a mission in Afghanistan. So for us, military cooperation with the Georgia National Guard is very important. Georgia is striving to become a NATO member and integrate with the West in general. As the Senator has mentioned, Georgia is kind of an island of democracy in our region. And our choice of integrating with the West, with NATO and European Union, is a value-based decision of our people, and we greatly appreciate the support of the United States and especially the state of Georgia to our Georgia and to our development and to our integration with the West. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
The Consul General of the Republic of Georgia, thank you.
Thanks for coming to see us. You have a consent calendar of local bills before you. The calendar has one bill on it. Mr. Secretary, are there any objections filed to the bill on the local consent calendar?
Mr. President, there are no objections filed.
Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the Committee on State and Local Government Operations, which is favorable to the passage of the bills on the local consent calendar? The chair hears none, and the report of the committee is agreed to. The question is on the passage of the bill on the local consent calendar. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bills, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. The bills on the local consent calendar, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. This time I'd like to recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, February 7th.
The Secretary will read the announcements.
Rules will meet upon adjournment in 450 of the Capitol. Public safety has been canceled. Regulated industries will meet in Mez 1 at 1 o'clock. Education and youth will meet at 2 p.m. in 307 of the CLOB. Joint transportation will meet at 2 p.m. in 506 of the CLOB. Economic development and tourism will meet at 3 p.m. in Health and Human Services will meet at 3 p.m. in 450 of the Capitol. Judiciary Subcommittee A will meet at 307 of the CLB at 4 p.m. Retirement will meet at 4 p.m. in Mez 1. Judiciary will meet at 4:30 p.m. in Subcommittee B and 307 of the CLB. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Do any other senators wish to make an announcement? Chair would like to recognize.
Make an announcement. If I could have your attention, please, senators. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock a.m., shortly after we convene, we're going to be taking the panoramic photo. So if everybody would please be on time, and we'll be taking the photo of you and your desks. So that's tomorrow morning.
Any senators wish to make an announcement? Chair would like to recognize our pro tem.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take a brief moment to recognize a group from YMCA of Georgia. Stand up, folks, in the gallery. Let's give them a warm Senate welcome. YMCA does great service to our young people, empowering our young people, helping them to balance their academics, their athletics, and their social lives, and we appreciate all you do to help our young people in Georgia. Thank you very, very much.
Chair would like to recognize a senator from the 28th.
Just want to take this time to recognize our Noonan Youth Council up there in the balcony. If y'all would please stand real quick, and we could give them a quick round of applause. And also, the Mayor Pro Tem of Noonan is here, Cynthia Jenkins, and she actually started the Youth Council back in 2008. So please give her a round of applause as well. Thank you.
The Majority Leader has moved that the Senate stand adjourned until 10 a.m. on Thursday, February 7th, 2019. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The ayes clearly have it. We stand adjourned.